Hello, and thanks for using TickBoom. For this question, we're given a graph of a chart, just in the generic form y is equal to fx, and then we're asked to select which of a series of inequalities is correct. So it's an interesting question because we're being asked to work out some things about both the function and its first and second derivative, but we're not actually given the function. We're just told it's some function fx. So we don't have the benefit of being able to just work out the first and second derivative, plug in the value 1, and then work out the inequality. We have to find some other way to deduce which inequality is correct by, I guess, just working out, well, what do we know, and therefore what can we conclude. So what I've done is I've drawn up a version of the chart here and all the different options that we have to pick between. And I think for a multiple choice question like this, the key is to simply step by step work out what we do know and see whether that allows us to get rid of some of the options, and then hopefully we end up having just one option that we can then conclude must be correct. So looking at what we're given, the first thing that I think becomes useful is the fact that this curve is concave down. Now, in terms of knowing that, we're concerned particularly at point 1, but in general, anywhere on a curve, you can conclude that it's concave down if the tangent line sits above the curve. So see how this tangent line that's been drawn for us is on top of the curve. It's always above the curve at all points. That lets us conclude that at this point y is equal to fx is concave down. So if y is fx is concave down, what that lets us conclude is that the second derivative must be less than 0. So, particularly at point 1, what we can conclude is that f"(1) must be less than 0. And if we look at all our options, that is the case for option A and B, but not for C and D. So immediately we can exclude those as being not potential solutions. Now, if we look at what's left, A and B, the only difference between them is this section over here. In one of them, we've got the first derivative of point 1 being less than the actual function, and in the second option, it's the reverse. So really, this question now has simplified down to, at point 1, what's bigger, the actual function or the first derivative? So what can be helpful at this point is to note that, by definition, the tangential line will intersect the function, and so we can actually work out, at least conceptually, what will this first derivative, the tangent, be? What value will it take? So f'(1), so the first derivative at x is equal to 1, will be equal to rise over run, like it always is with any tangent. In this case, the rise we know is f'(1), because it's tangential to the function. So the rise is the value of the function at x equals 1. So now what we're concerned with is what is the run. And whilst we can't work it out exactly, we can draw some conclusions. If I was to look at the length of this line here, the run, I'll just call it some number alpha. Well, we could call it anything, but I'll just call it alpha. We'll call that the run. And what I can conclude about alpha is that it must be greater than 1, because the length from 0 to here is 1, because we're at x equals 1. And because I've gone further back, the total run must be greater than 1. So a simple rearrangement then lets us see that f1 is equal to alpha times f dash 1. I've just moved the alpha over. And that lets me conclude that f1 must be greater than f dash 1, since alpha is greater than 1. If you take any number and multiply it by something greater than 1, your result must be bigger than your starting point. So if that's the case, we can come back up to our options and look for the one where f dash 1 is less than f1, which is this one here, A. And that's how we know that A is the correct answer. So hopefully you've been able to follow along there. It really, given the multiple choice nature of the question, it really allowed us the luxury of being able to, you know, just get rid of some options, and then the question really did simplify into, you know, a fairly straightforward thing. I think what was hard about this question is that you weren't given the function. If we'd been given what fx was, this would have become a very easy question. So the key really came down to just going, well, what can you work out with what you've been told? And the key really was this. We can work out that the rise over run will involve a number greater than 1, and that let us conclude what we needed to conclude. So there you have it. Tick boom.